Okay, so for those who may or may not have been paying attention, in the last few days, I uploaded a story and a post asking for people that may have had questions about what it is that I do, anything they had questions about in regards to photography, life of a professional photographer, etc. So I asked for people to send me in their questions, and we finally got a list of questions. We have 27 questions on the list. So bear with me. This video will be probably kind of lengthy, but we're going to go through each one of the questions. I'm going to answer those questions, and hopefully people get the insight that they're looking for. So, all right, here we go. Question number one. What do you look for when selecting models? Okay, so usually when I'm selecting models, what I'll do is I'll go through either Instagram, Facebook, uh, social medias, TikToks, maybe a website. If they have a website, maybe Model Mayhem. I know Model Mayhem's kind of older, but I'll go through and I'll look at their quality of work that they've done. Usually it'll say in there how long they've been modeling for. I'll look to see the people they've worked with, people they're constantly posting. And for me, it kind of gives me insight as to what their level of experience is. So I usually like to see if they're brand new or if they've got a pretty lengthy portfolio. That's everybody's different. Everybody's coming in a different spot in life. So for me, it's there's not a whole lot on that front that you can see until you've actually talked to somebody. Number two says, what turns you off when selecting models? Okay, so if I'm going through your social media and I'm seeing that you have nothing but a bunch of photos of you constantly smoking weed or hitting a bong, hitting a vape, to me that turns me off. If you don't have a separate Instagram for your modeling and your personal, I probably won't choose you because it shows me that you're not really serious about what you're doing. I'm not a big fan of smoking. Like me personally, I've never smoked weed, never smoked a cigarette, nothing like that. So if I see constant pictures and videos of you smoking, kind of a turnoff for me. And I probably won't pursue you as a model. What are red Number three says, what are red flags you look for in clients? Red flags might be them constantly working with people that I know aren't putting out good quality, and to me it's kind of indicative saying that they're not giving their all in their modeling and they're kind of settling for whatever comes along. Red flags, if they're constantly not changing anything to improve or learn different aspects of their craft, that could be a red flag. Um, if I know there's been photographers that have had constant issues with models in the community and these people constantly shoot with those people, to me that's a red flag and I avoid that like the plague because I don't want any drama like that. Number four says, do you ever shoot for exposure or shoot with somebody based on a number of followers they have? So it's kind of a two-pronged question. So do I ever shoot for exposure? The answer is no. I see this so often, and so many people get, I should say this, a lot of women that reach out to me and people and for events that reach out to me and they, oh, well, you'll get so much exposure from this event and blah, 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 blah. I can't pay my bills with exposure, unfortunately. The number of followers somebody has really doesn't come into play with me because if I know that you're trying to get me to work for you for free just so you can turn around and sell it and make money off of me, that's a no-go for me. So on the contrary, though, on the other side of the fence is shooting for exposure. Like I do TFP shoots, time for print. or trade shoots, if you will. Um, if it's a concept that neither one of us have, or we can both benefit from, I give them my skill set, my expertise, my quality of photos. They give me a look that I'm looking for that's going to help benefit me. It's a fair trade. So I do trade shoots, but I don't shoot for exposure or based on the number of followers that somebody has. So number 5, how long have you been shooting? How long have you been shooting professionally? Okay. I started shooting in March of 2019. So, sorry, my dog's barking in the background. Bailey, stop barking. How long have you been shooting? I've been shooting since March of 2019. How long? So I would say I shot probably my first 3 years before I consistently started getting professional bookings. And it can be a number of things because a lot of the definition of professional varies from person to person depending on who you're talking to. So for me, I kind of define professional as somebody who's consistently getting paid work from clients without having to, I guess, do free work all the time. Like, yes, we do choose to do free work sometimes to do trade shoots. I still do trade shoots to this day. But professionally, once you're getting paid to do a job, that in my eyes, you're on the level of a professional because you're being paid to do certain work. But yeah, I've been shooting for coming up on 7 years, just over 7 years now. And professionally, I would say I started about 2022 is when it started really becoming consistent paid work coming through. So I would say been shooting about 7, been shooting professional just over 4 maybe. What made you choose your camera brand? Interesting. So for me, I'm shooting with Sony, and ultimately I chose Sony because of their autofocus capability. And I know a lot of people will be like, oh, well, all the camera brands have a great autofocus. That's not true. So I started shooting with Sony in 2022. And I seen down in the questions, there's another question that's going to lead into this one and be kind of a follow-on. So I'll go more in depth when we get down to that question. So, but yeah, I chose my current camera brand. I chose it because at the time I was looking more for better performing autofocus. So, and Sony happened to be like second to none at the time when it came to autofocus and tracking and stuff. So that's why I ended up going with Sony. Number 7, is it expensive to become a photographer? Oh, that's kind of a double-edged sword. So yes and no. So I'll tell you this. Anybody and I joke around with this all the time, photography will be the most expensive hobby you'll ever get into, or the most expensive business you'll ever get into. Let me explain. So when it comes to your expenses and gear and travel and bookings and everything comes into play. And I'll give you a prime example. So my very first camera I ever bought came with 2 cheap kit lenses. This was a Nikon back in the day, back in 2019. The camera with those 2 cheap lenses that sucked was just about almost $800. I wasn't doing paid work, so I didn't get the opportunity to kind of have it paid for by clients. I came out of pocket starting out, and I shot my first 6 months on that crap camera. It was a Nikon D5600 crop sensor camera. It wasn't the greatest quality, but I made it work. I think within 6 months, I upgraded to a Nikon D850. That camera by itself was $3,000, and that was used. So I picked up that camera used for $3,000, and after that, that kind of elevated my game up a little bit with my portraits and my models and magazine work that I was doing. So I started investing more in lenses and glass and stuff. So I think the lenses over the course of a few years, just with Nikon alone, my first 85 millimeter Sigma 85 millimeter f1.4, I think I paid $800 for that. And then I picked up what was it? I had the nifty 50 millimeter. That was cheap. That was like 150 used. I bounced around with a couple of long range lenses. I did have a 70-200. I think that one cost me like $700 used. So, but in the stink of things, like all these lenses, they start adding up over time. So I think in the matter of that first year, I've probably spent $6,000, give or take, just on camera and lenses, not including batteries, L brackets, tripod. That I hate tripods, by the way. I don't use them. There's another question down low that I'm going to explain why. So I would say yes, it can get very expensive to be a photographer, depending on the avenue and genre you want to shoot. Because obviously you can pick a different genre like landscapes, and you're not going to be using the most expensive gear out there, having to buy all the flashes and stuff like that. That's another thing, strobe lighting, crazy expensive sometimes. But yeah, it can be very expensive depending on the genre you want to shoot. Me personally, I started out shooting models, portraiture, magazines and stuff, and I had to buy all that stuff. It wasn't cheap. But so I would say, is it expensive to become a photographer? Yes. It can also be, like I said, it depends on what you're shooting. But for what I was shooting, yes, I'll say it was expensive to get started. Number 8, how do you maintain your work-life balance? What is that? I don't have a work-life balance, honestly. I'm constantly on the go, and I'm constantly shooting. I'm constantly doing a lot of things. I've gotten very good on time management, which is how I maintain a lot of the balance, whatever balance I do have. When I first started out, I was doing upwards of 30 photo shoots a month. And that was just for me practicing, honing my skills, learning different things. I taught myself everything with photography. I taught myself everything through watching YouTube videos. I would literally watch videos, push pause, try it on my camera. Okay, play. Okay, pause, try it on my camera. It was trial by fire. And then I found some people that said they would model for me, and we did trade shoots and stuff like that. But that's how I learned, and that's how I practiced. That's how I got good. You have to learn lighting. I like to say lighting is 90% of photography. But too many of the people out there I've seen are getting a camera and immediately wanting people to pay them when they don't know what they're doing. And it's become an issue because I like to say it's becoming a pandemic itself, because a lot of these people are getting a camera, not having any of the right equipment, and trying to charge people, professional photographers, pricing when they don't even have the right gear to do the right job. It's unfortunate, but is what it is. As far as work-life balance goes, I don't like to call it work-life balance. I like to call it more of good time management, because I'm able to book shoots throughout the day and still have time to do other things in my personal life. So get good at time management is what I would say for that question. Number 9, do you ever have conflicts or issues with models? I think every photographer does. A lot of the big issues I see is a lot of the personal issues and conflicts I've personally come into contact with have been more of like and this is for everybody watching this, if photographer or model, do contracts and model releases for every single shoot you do. And I'll tell you why. Because this is where a lot of the conflicts and issues come in, is because things aren't stated in a contract. One of the biggest conflicts or issues I have with models is they tend to get pissed off when I won't give them the raw photos. And I always tell them, it's in the contract. It says model will not receive any raw photos. You'll receive edited photos only via email. They sign the contract and then they want to complain about it after the fact. And I'm like, you signed a contract saying it wasn't going to be there. But I like to talk to the models going into a shoot or before we go into a shoot. So that way there's no gray area. The contract and release is there. Everything's in black and white. There's no, oh, well, you told me this and instead you did this, or whatever the case is. We both have a clear understanding going into it. We both know what's going to happen. We know the times. We know what time we got to be there, what time we got to be done by. It's a wrap. So I try to eliminate all the guesswork out of it through my contracts. So I usually have minimal conflicts or issues with models these days because I've dealt with all the crap in the past and I don't want to do it again. So I made sure it wouldn't happen again. So number 10, do you limit the amount of photos you deliver? Okay, so this is where I differ from a lot of other photographers, and I might get some flack for this one from my fellow photographer colleagues. I do not personally limit the amount of photos I deliver to a model or a client. So, and I'll tell you why. So, me personally, I like to say nobody in Vegas can do what I do for as cheap as I do. And here's why. Because I see all these people always posting and they're always saying, oh, well, you took all these photos, pick 5. You shoot 300 photos, pick 5 to be edited. I'm like, if you're going to tell them to only pick 5, why shoot 300? Doesn't make sense. So my theory is, if it's a good photo, I want you to have it. Plain and simple. Yes, it's more work on my part, but that's where I set myself apart from all the other photographers that are at my skill level, because I'm not limiting at the amount you get. That photographer over there might get you 5 photos. I may give you 50 or 60. Who do you think that person's going to come back to for their next photo shoot? Probably me, because they're going to get more value out of it. Not always the case, but I like to think that me delivering more value to the clients is going to keep people coming back to me, and so far it has. So why, if it ain't broke, why fix it? Number 11, how do you quote pricing to each client, or do you just charge a flat rate? Okay, so the quote on pricing depends on a few factors. So A, what's the location of the shoot? Am I going to have to travel 30 to 45 minutes out of my way across town in rush hour? How many miles am I putting on my car to go back and forth? I got to load up my gear, take it to wherever. How many outfits are we shooting? How much time are we shooting on site? How many edits are you expecting? Like, there's so many things that come into play here, because if it's just here in the studio, if it's just here in the studio, one outfit, which never happens. I always tell them bring several outfits, but just for the sake of the scenario, one outfit, one look, one backdrop. I don't got to travel. They're coming to me. It's going to be a lot cheaper than if I have to go an hour away and go shoot. So I usually don't charge a flat rate. The only time I usually charge flat rates is when I'm shooting sports. And if I'm out there for a team, it's either a team flat rate fee, or I'm charging a flat individual rate per player that wants to get photos. So that's really how I do my pricing quotes and flat rates. Number 12, what's the coolest location you've ever shot at? Ooh, that's a good one. Coolest location I've ever shot at? I would say when I was up in northern Nevada, we went out to a place called Bernie Falls. I think this was a couple years ago now. But me, model Nicole that lives up in Reno, we took a few people out to Bernie Falls, and it was about 3 hours or so driving each way. And we went out there. It was waterfalls, rivers, trees, nature. So cool to shoot out there. There were so many different opportunities. And I kind of walked into that blind, not ready for the elements that I was going to need. Um, the girls seemed okay with the photos. I personally hated everything I delivered out of that because I felt like I could have done so much better had I done more homework on the location. So we're planning to go back and try to nail another shot at Bernie Falls. So I would say Bernie Falls up in Northern Nevada was really cool. I liked it shooting up there. Where are we at? Number 13. What's the furthest you've traveled for a photo shoot? Uh, there's two answers actually. So the furthest driving was probably 10 hours each way. And the furthest flying was probably 5 hours flying down in Texas. No, I take that back. My furthest was Jersey. My furthest was New Jersey. And that flight was a lot longer because we had flight issues. It took from the time we left to the time we got to where we were, it was probably almost 24 hours. Um, but yeah, I would say New Jersey was probably the furthest. Um, what's your favorite shoot experience? My favorite shoot experience. I've had a lot of good experiences. I would say one of the most memorable ones. Um, I liked the shoots, and this is probably going to be a different answer for everybody. I like the the shoot experiences where you make a difference in somebody's day or their life because you never know what people are going through. Um, I know that one of the more recent shoots I did was a graduation photo shoot slash little extra sports thing. So I had a parent that hired me to shoot grad photos of their child who's getting ready to go off to college. And on top of that, he's an athlete. He was a recruited athlete. And so we did his grad photo shoot. We did his cap and gown. We did all that stuff. And then we did some sports stuff at the basketball court. Now, this child, I call him child, this guy's mom, the client, she's gone through some stuff. And she's fought hard through the process. And when she saw the photos that were finished and delivered to her, I can't tell you how great it felt to me to get her response and her reaction and the praise and thank yous I got. That made all the difference in the world to me. Um, it's tough to watch people struggle through certain situations, but seeing how the work I delivered really helped her, especially, get through her situation in the moment, it was amazing. So I would put that right up there with probably one of my favorite shoot experiences. Number 15, what's something you wish you knew sooner? That it was going to be so expensive. It was something I wish I knew sooner. I wish I had a mentor to really guide me through the initial journey of photography. I had a couple of people that shared tips here and there, but I didn't have a mentor that developed me as a photographer. I kind of wish I knew about mentors and stuff like that sooner. I think it would have probably developed me and set me up for success a little sooner than having to go trial by fire and learning everything through YouTube. Number 16, what's your favorite part of being a photographer? Wow. To be honest, it's kind of a thankless job. Yes, we do get people that praise us and love the photos we deliver and everything. But my favorite part of being a photographer is getting those thank yous when they see the finished results and knowing I took care of people that may or may not be in a good spot at the moment. And maybe somebody spent their last dime to get this photo shoot because it was for headshots to try to get a job, or maybe it was for me to go out there and shoot them playing sports so they could try to get recruited and have pictures and video to give scouts or something like that. I like that being a photographer, I can be that driving force that can help somebody get to where they're wanting to go. Being able to capture a variety of different things. So I shoot everything except weddings, and that's by choice. I shot a couple weddings. I just really wasn't passionate about it, so I didn't really continue with it. Number 17, how did you become a photographer? Great question. So growing up, I grew up with my grandparents. So growing up, my grandfather always shot on film camera. So my grandfather passed last August. My grandmother actually gave me his old film cameras. So like I have them up here on the shelf. So like this right here, this is my grandfather's old film Nikon. It was super dirty. I cleaned it up and everything, and I keep it up here on my shelf. I have his old Polaroid up there. So when I'm in here in my little home office area, I kind of have Grandpa looking down on me. So he was always shooting film, developing his film in the darkroom. When I joined the military, I always had a little point and shoot digital camera everywhere I went. I never really put too much of stock into thinking I was going to become one. I just always had a camera on me. Over the course of my lifetime of my jobs being military police, corporate investigator, private investigator, I've always had cameras on me. So back in 2019, I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy a camera. We're going to do this. And that's kind of how it started. I stuck with it. I learned, taught myself. I'm sure a lot of people thought I was just going to dabble in it and then move on to something else. Here we are, 7 years later, still doing it. But that's how I became a photographer. Do you have number 18, do you have age limits for people you shoot with? Yes and no, and I'll explain that. So age limits, got to be, for a lot of the stuff I shoot, got to be over 18. And you got to keep in mind for the stuff I'm shooting, like I do a lot of lingerie, boudoir. I do, some of my stuff is nudity sometimes, topless, whatever the case is. Don't want to deal with not having underage people, minors. Don't want to deal with those issues at all. Do I shoot with minors? Very rarely. I think over the course of 7 years, there might have been 2 minors I shot with. I'm not against shooting with minors. It's just a hassle when you have to coordinate with parents and have parents getting their work schedules together so they can bring and be there with the minor model. I just don't want to deal with it. So I avoid shooting with minors like the plague. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's just personal preference. So I would say, yeah, I don't really shoot with minors much for that reason. But I just don't prefer it because it's just so much of an extra hassle to deal with. Number 19, how do you handle travel shoots? Great question. So my travel for shoots has picked up quite a bit over the last couple of years, and it's got to the point to where I'm trying to play Tetris with my bags, trying to fit what lighting, what lenses, what cameras, what clothing and everything. I'm playing Tetris with my camera bag, trying to figure out how to do it. Obviously, because I want to keep costs low for when you fly in the airlines and stuff. It gets expensive with baggage because some of these airlines trying to charge $100 for baggage, sometimes even more, depending on how many bags you have. You got to travel light. You got to decide what you want, what you don't want, what do you really need out of this. It can be bad. So, yeah, I try to narrow it down to the bare minimum I'm going to need: cameras, lenses, lighting, and leave it at that. And travel as light as possible. Number 20, do you ever bring your family along on shoots? Never. So I never bring family on shoots or shoot trips for this reason. It's not because, no, I don't want them to experience wherever I'm going. It's because my focus needs to be on my client, and I can't do that if I've got kids running around me and wondering what they're doing off to the sides, and it's going to be more of a distraction than it's not conducive to a good photo shoot experience. So for that reason, I don't bring family along on shoots. Have you ever shot with famous people or celebrities? I have shot with some people that are more well known. A lot of the time, celebrities will ask you to sign NDAs. That's a non-disclosure agreement, for purposes of they want to keep to themselves, or they did a shoot and they don't want everybody harassing them or whatever the case may be. So a lot of those people, they will have you sign non-disclosure agreements. I have worked with a few that didn't require it, but at the same time, like, I respect people's privacy, and I'd like to work with some people again, so I'm not going to piss them off by posting stuff they don't want me to post. So I'll kind of leave that one there. Number 22. Do you have regrets in any aspect of photography? Regrets. I would say not having more faith in my abilities early on, because I was scared of what people were going to think of what I was shooting. I left a lot of money on the table, so to speak, because I didn't think I was ready to shoot with certain people or shoot in certain circumstances. So I wish that I would have pushed the envelope a little harder than I even did starting out. I think I would have been much better off, and it probably would have opened more doors for me. Number 23, why did you leave Nikon for Sony? The golden question. So this is the one I talked about earlier that I was going to tie in later. So I started with Nikon in 2019. In 2022, I flipped over to Sony, and people ask why. So in 2022 is when I started getting invited to shoot sports. And if you guys know, at the time, Nikon, I had the D850. I sold the D850 and moved to the Nikon Z7, which was amazing camera, by the way, for portraits, amazing. The problem is Nikon's autofocus was not on par. And to shoot sports, you needed a snappy autofocus. So I got lucky because the people I was shooting with, and I got invited, I started shooting football first. So for those of you that aren't familiar, the A7FL is where I got my sports start. So it's 7 versus 7, no pads, no helmets, and it's gotten huge. So luckily, I was able to learn sports. It's a whole different animal than shooting portraits and models. But the main watered down reason I left Nikon for Sony was the autofocus performance. And I got lucky. Somebody scooped up all of my Nikon gear, almost all of my Nikon gear, in one swoop. And I took all that money and I put it into my new Sony body and lenses and stuff like that. And I hit the ground running. So the short answer is I left Nikon for Sony because of the autofocus at the time. Nikon has gotten better since then, but I think Sony is still pretty much superior. That's just personal opinion. I'm biased because I have Sony now, obviously. Number 24, what is a photo shoot you've always wanted to do but haven't yet? Ooh, photo shoot I've always wanted to do but haven't done yet. So I've been setting up a specific photo shoot concept for the last over 4 years. And my problem is I'm becoming too much of a perfectionist around my concept. And the model I had selected to be in that concept, unfortunately, no call, no showed on the day we were supposed to do it a couple of years ago. And since then, I haven't worked with her. I haven't even seen her modeling anymore. I think she quit, which is what it is. I'm one of those people, if you no call, no show on me, regardless, with no communication, I'm one and done. I won't work with you again. So I let that go, but I still to this day have not shot that concept, and I'm still searching for the right model to do it. I have put a couple things in motion to try to get it squared away. So I think it's going to happen here in 2026, more towards the end of the year, most likely, but we'll see. But yeah, that's a photo shoot I always wanted to. I can't give the concept out because it would kind of give it away, but it involves a rain. It's a simulated rain shoot. I'll leave it there. Number 25. What's your favorite genre to shoot? Ooh. I would say on the sports side, I love shooting football. I think for sports, that's probably the most fun, most action you can get. I would say on the portraiture side, I love lingerie boudoir. It's showcasing women's beauty. It's been great, and I've got to network with a bunch of people. Living here in Las Vegas, obviously, there's no shortage of people that want pictures showing a lot of skin. But yeah, I would say lingerie boudoir or shooting football and sports would be my favorite genres. Number 26. When did you know you were at a professional photographer point? This kind of ties into another question we had earlier. I would say probably around 2022, when I started getting consistently booked for paid gigs and people were happy with the quality I was delivering, and I was getting more paid gigs than trade shoots. And from that point is when I really considered myself to be on a professional level, and it's done me right. So I've learned different business practices. You take care of your people, they're going to come back to you. So that's kind of for me was when I started doing more paid gigs than trade shoots. All the trade shoots, it wasn't because I couldn't get paid gigs, it's because I chose to. But me being the professional that I am, I'm not going to give a less effort to a trade shoot than I do a paid shoot, because at the end of the day, it's me. I chose to do that trade shoot. I chose to take that paid gig. I've got to deliver the same effort to either, regardless of what it is. Excuse me. Number 27, which is the last question. What changes did you make at the pro level as opposed to beginner status? So, oh man, it's a great question to end on, especially. So I would say that the changes I made at the pro level was with my time management was being able to, you've got to prioritize what's best for you and in your portfolio and your business itself. So if I started really dialing back on the amount of people I was shooting with, and I really wanted to narrow it down to the quality candidates that knew their stuff. So the models that knew posing, they knew their angles, they knew what worked best for them and their body types, and those people that don't waste your time. So that's the biggest thing for me is time. So my biggest asset is time. I want people that know their stuff so that we can come in, bang, 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 nail out the shoot, nail all the shots, the poses, locations. It's quick, and we leave it at that. In the beginning, I was shooting everything. Like I was shooting 30 plus photo shoots a month consistently. And at the time I was overshooting tremendously. So like I would go into photo shoots and the model would pose, and I would come out like 3,000 shots from one photo shoot. It was terrible. And I was going through having to go through thousands of photos all the time. It's draining. I've learned to really dial it back to where now I might shoot 300 to 400 in a photo shoot. And I've obviously found ways to speed up my workflow. Like in the beginning, I was editing on a laptop on a MacBook Air through Lightroom. Now I'm editing on my iPad. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but like here, let me pull this up. So like I'll go through here and like I'll go to Lightroom and I have Lightroom ready to go on my iPad. I pull out my little Apple Pencil and I just next. And I've gotten to that point to where I can go through and edit and everything from 3,000 photos in a football game I'm having those photos done either the same night or the next morning. And the same with ultimate frisbee and all these other sports and everything I'm shooting. I've got to a point to where I can get everything down in my workflow so it's done within a day or two max. So I'm not having to drag it out for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and have clients waiting on their photos. So that's kind of where I've gotten to in my workflow, was making sure that when you go from a beginner level to a professional level, you've got to have a fast workflow. Clients don't want to wait on their stuff. And I think that when you look at it from their perspective, you can see that, okay, they're waiting on this for maybe an audition piece or a headshot for a resume or portfolio, whatever the case is, to try to get work. They don't want to be waiting on their stuff. So if you can't deliver it, they're going to go to somebody who will. So that's kind of where the changes I made in my workflow was to dial back the amount of photo shoots I was doing and also dial back the amount of photos I was taking. So, and really narrow it down to the quality shots that was really going to get to the core of what we were shooting. And I like to say that I under promise and over deliver. To this day, I probably still over deliver because I give a lot of edited photos, but at the same token, clients are appreciative, and they remember that when it comes to who took care of me when it came to needing photos. Oh yeah, Steve did. So I'm going to be wrapping it up. That was the last of 27 questions. We're already over 40 minutes in this video. I kind of knew it was going to run long, but it was something I wanted to put together so that way people that had questions or wanted to see what was going on with like what happens behind the scenes of a photographer. Because a lot of people all they see is the guy out there clicking the button and that's it. They never see what happens behind that. They never get insight into what actually takes place. Because a lot of these people, they see us out there clicking the button and that's it. But they don't see is we have to pack up all of our gear. We have to transport it all back home. We have to come home, offload SD cards, charge batteries, and things get crazy. We'll spend probably 8 to 10 hours editing photos once we leave the event, we come home, we spend another 8 to 10 hours editing your event, whatever it is. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes that people don't really know or appreciate. And they think that, oh, you're just charging us all this money because you think you can. And I'm like, no, it's because we're putting in a lot of work behind the scenes that nobody sees. And it is what it is. But I appreciate everybody sticking around to get the insight, listen to the questions. Hopefully this helped you guys understand what happens behind the scenes with professional photographers, videographers, models. I will have more videos coming. We are planning a model interview. So we're going to get the models' perspectives from some of these similar questions. And we'll have a model explain it from their end. The model I'm talking to, she's been doing it for, I want to say 10 to 12 years for her personal modeling experience. So should be really good coming up here. I would say in the next couple weeks, hopefully. We'll see if we can get that online sooner than that. But right now, I think we're targeting 2 to 3 weeks out right now because schedules and trying to link up and is what it is. But I am going to be signing off for tonight. I appreciate everybody that came through. If you guys want to follow me, you guys can follow me on all these different social channels, I guess, if you will. I have like 4 Instagram channels. The main one is ashmore.media. So I'll put everything down in the description below so you guys can see all the different socials, where to find me. It doesn't cost anything for you guys to click subscribe on YouTube. I would appreciate the support so much, and I appreciate you guys, but I will let you guys get back to the rest of your night. Thank you again for tuning in, and have a great night. Peace.